Overwatch didn't just become iconic because of Blizzard. It became what it is because of the people who played it. From streamers and pros to content creators and full-blown chaos agents, certain players helped define what Overwatch looked like, felt like, and in a lot of ways, what it meant to play the game. This isn't just a list of who clicked heads the best. It's about players who shaped the culture, who made Overwatch unforgettable in their own way. And to tell that story, we need to break it down by era. Welcome to the history of Overwatch, told through the players who made it legendary. The early days of Overwatch were pure chaos. No ranked, no metas, no structure. It was a lawless, beautiful mess where no one really knew what they were doing, but everybody was having a good time. You could pick 6 of the same hero. 6 Winstons jumping on the point wasn't trolling. It was a valid strat. Widow could body shot Zenyatta from across the map because he only had 150 HP. Cassidy was called McCree at the time, and his right click did full damage and deleted tanks. And Mercy, she was the only real main healer that most people trusted. There were no rules, just raw gameplay, hype moments, and community energy. This era didn't have a name back then, but now we look back on it as the Founders era, the time when Overwatch was still being figured out and the players were the meta. And at the center of it all were a few personalities who didn't just play the game, they helped define it. In the middle of all that chaos, one player stood out. Not because he was loud or dramatic, but because everybody trusted him. And that player was Seagull. Before Overwatch even launched, Seagull was already respected in the FPS scene. He came from Team Fortress 2, another class-based shooter, where he made a name for himself as a high-level competitor. So when he moved to Overwatch, people followed. And from day one, he became the Overwatch streamer. He was calm, smart, easy to watch. Seagull could explain fights without sounding like a coach and show high-level mechanics without flexing on his viewers. This made him the perfect bridge. Casual players learned from him. Competitive players respected him. Everybody kept coming back. At one point, he was pulling over 30,000 viewers in a stream. In 2016, that was massive. Seagull helped push Overwatch to the top of the Twitch charts, right next to League of Legends and CSGO. And for a lot of people, he was their introduction to Overwatch. Even Blizzard saw it. They flew him out for interviews, developer feedback, and events. Seagull didn't just play Overwatch. In those early days, he helped define what Overwatch was. Seagull wasn't doing it alone, though. What made the Founders era so special was this constantly rotating group of streamers playing together against each other and queuing into the same lobbies every single day. You'd log on and see Moon going full chaos, Tim the Tatman tilted and laughing his way through ranked, Last playing it cool and always hanging out with the big streamers, and Seagull dominating as usual. Even early Defran was a part of the mix. Flashes of raw mechanical talent paired with unpredictable behavior that made him a much-watched name. It wasn't a team, it was just a shared space, a group of personalities bouncing off each other, turning ranked games into content without even trying. Remember, it was 66 at the time. The games were getting pretty full. So whether they were grouped or solo, this crew was early Overwatch. The culture, the clips, the chaos, this is where it all started. And while the streamers shaped the culture, the latter had its own set of legends. Players like Harb, Surefour, IDDQ, and Calvin were tearing up ranks, dominating leaderboards, and putting out clips that made people wonder what the skill ceiling of this game really was. Together, this whole group built the foundation, personality, gameplay, and community. This was Overwatch before the structure, raw and unpredictable, and it was very player-driven. But all of that would start to change. In 2018, the Overwatch League launched. Metas tightened, branding took over, and a new eras of players stepped into the spotlight. Starting with one of the most iconic and controversial names in Overwatch, XQC. When people look at XQC today, it's hard to believe he was once one of the best tanks in Overwatch. Loud, chaotic, completely unhinged, but under all of it, he was cracked. A ranked grinder playing 16 hours a day, and a Winston specialist who actually knew how to win fights. At the launch of Overwatch League in 2018, XQC was the main tank for Dallas Fuel. His playstyle was raw, aggressive, and unpredictable, and it was sometimes straight up uncoachable. But when it worked, it was overwhelming. His dives were fast, disruptive, and hard to counter. Off the stage, he was the definition of volatile. Suspensions, fines, Twitter beef, it followed him everywhere, but so did the viewers. They loved it. XQC brought eyes to Overwatch League. He made the league entertaining, even when he wasn't playing. He left the league early, but he never left the community. Overwatch was always tied to his name, and his presence permanently shaped the way people watched and talked about the game. He wasn't the face of Overwatch League, but he was one of its biggest personalities, and one of the first to prove that being entertaining mattered just as much as being good. Sinatraa joined the San Francisco Shock as a teenager, and quickly became known as arguably the best player in the league. His hero pool was focused, mostly Zarya and Doomfist, but within those picks, he was unmatched. He flexed between DPS and tank depending on the meta, and either way, he found a way to carry. When he was in form, it felt like his team was playing a 6v5. In 2019, he led the Shock to a championship and was named the league MVP. Blizzard gave him his own skin in the game, and he even made it onto The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. For a brief moment, Valorant, Sinatraa was Overwatch's golden child. He ended up leaving Overwatch League to go pro in Valorant, and his career was later cut short by a serious controversy, but his legacy in Overwatch is locked in. He didn't just dominate the meta, he was the meta. If Sinatraa was the carry, Super was the anchor. He wasn't just a top tier tank, he was the face of the Overwatch League. As the main tank for the San Francisco Shock, Super helped lead the team to back-to-back championships. Rhine, Orisa, Sigma, whatever the meta needed, he locked it in and delivered. But Super's influence went far beyond just gameplay. He was the guy doing interviews, showing up on desk segments, bringing personality to a role that's usually quiet. Fans actually knew who he was. He wasn't just playing, he was representing. For a lot of people, Super made Overwatch League feel personal and fun. He eventually moved on from pro play to full-time streaming, but during the Overwatch League era, no one balanced skill and relatability like he did. With Super, the Overwatch League era didn't just have stars, it had a face. And before we move on, yes, there were legends from every region. Korean players like Fleta, Prophet, Jay Jonak were just dominant. They defined what mechanical skill looked like in Overwatch. This video is focused more on personalities and culture impact, but don't get it twisted. Those guys were absolute monsters. By 2023, the Overwatch League was on life support. Teams dropped out, viewership plummeted, and Blizzard ended up pulling the plug. A bunch of pros left, some moved to Valorant, others vanished completely, but the game didn't just stop, it shifted. Overwatch stayed alive because even with all of its flaws, it's still the most fluid and responsive shooter on the market. Nothing else plays like it. People didn't just log in for content, they logged in because the game feels good. And the creators, they helped give players a reason to stay, a sense of community. There's the obvious ones like Emong, CarQ, Flats, and then there's the ones who always stuck around like ML7, there's been Spylo, Samito, even if he's controversial. The community's been carried by these names more than Blizzard will ever admit. And yeah, I mean, I guess I'm in that mix now too. I'm just yelling at my screen and breaking things down for whoever's willing to listen. So this isn't about leagues anymore, it's about who kept showing up. This is the creator era and it's still being written.